Okay, go ahead.
Well, thank you for coming. We enjoy your presence. And today we have the pleasure of hearing the life story of a friend and neighbor, Bill Walston. Bill was born and raised in Southern Connecticut in a very modest environment. You will agree it's modest. Bill was the oldest of 7 children and lived in a small house situated on a high hill in Branford, Connecticut. There was no electricity, no running water. The family used a hand pump 50 yards from the house, and they used an outhouse. He cut wood from the adjoining forest for the wood stove. From the age of 14 until graduation from high school, Bill worked on a dairy farm 6.5 days a week, getting up at 4:30 in the morning, walking 1 mile to work to clean the barn, feed and milk the cows, returning home at 7:30 a.m. to get ready for school. After high school, Bill worked a variety of jobs. During that time, he was the Connecticut State Wrestling Championship for the 178-pound category. Don't mess with Bill. He found a college he could afford with his modest savings. He enrolled in the University of North Dakota in 1956 and promptly joined the ROTC for the $30 a month. Bill graduated cum laude in 1960 with a BS in Business Administration. He then spent 2 years active duty in the Army. Bill's career encompassed working with the U.S. Steel Company in various management positions, such as assistant controller, controller of U.S. Steel's chemical division, director of personnel, and other management positions. Let's hear more about his living the American dream by welcoming Bill Walston.
Thank you, Lee. Now, I want to make a couple of comments about Lee. You know, we've been here almost 9 years now, and Lee runs these monthly talks, and he does the trivia, and I think he needs a round of applause for whatever he expends.
Thank you.
And before I start my talk, I'll provide a little background. Lee already provided some of it, but I'll give you a little bit more. Some of you were here for my first presentation. You heard this, so pardon if you have to hear it again. I was born in New Haven, Connecticut, and grew up in Branford, Connecticut. I was the oldest son in a family with 7 children. I sang in the high school glee club and graduated with honors from Branford High School. From the age of 14 until I graduated, I worked 6.5 days a week at a dairy farm 1.5 miles from my home. I was up at 4:30 a.m. and walked 1/2 mile through the woods to the farm. I cleaned the barn to help the owner milk and feed the cows. He had 35 cows, mostly Jerseys and Guernseys, for their butter fat content in the milk, which increased the price, the value he got for his milk, and a few Holsteins for buying. I returned at 4 p.m. after school and brought the cows in the pasture and fed them. We were feeding them citrus pulp and hay, and milked it again. I was paid 85 cents an hour and gave most of my earnings to my mother to help feed the family. After graduation from high school, I worked for 3 years at different jobs until I decided to go to college. The first in my family to ever do that. I enrolled in the University of North Dakota in 1956 and graduated cum laude in 1960 with a BS degree in business administration. I was elected Phi Eta Sigma, the freshman honorary, Beta Gamma Sigma, the business honorary, and got a referral to Harvard Business School, which I couldn't do because I didn't have any money for that. I worked as a busboy and other jobs to help pay for school. I joined ROTC because of the $30 a month you were paid in your junior and senior years. But you also had to make a 2-year commitment to active duty after graduation, which I did. I did my 2 years at Fort Jackson after graduating first in my class from the Fort Benning Infantry Officers Training School. With that background, my talk this evening will discuss the various trips I took, alone or with family, to different parts of the world, and some of my free time activities. When I left 2 years of active military service, I was employed by the United States Steel Corporation, their water division. I was promoted and transferred 6 times in 12 years. Cleveland to Waukegan, Illinois, to DeKalb, Illinois, Joliet, Illinois, to Pittsburgh, to Haverhill, Ohio, and then finally we're into Pittsburgh. During my time in Joliet, Illinois, my oldest son Keith was born, and more my time in Ohio, my younger son Scott was born. I was very fortunate to have a wife that willingly accepted these moves. You know, that's not an easy life for a woman. So I joined U.S. Steel's Chemical Division on my first move to Pittsburgh. Not too long after that move, U.S. Steel spun off the Chemical Division into a separate public company. They needed the proceeds to help pay down some of the debt incurred by the steel business. The separate company was named Aristech Chemical, with over $1 billion in sales and a very high return on sales, listed in the Fortune 500. Shortly after the spin-off, Huntsman Chemical made a hostile offer for the company. He wanted our large commodity chemical products, phenol, acetone, polypropylene, 2-EH alcohol, and some others. This resulted in a buyout agreement by Aristech Management with Mitsubishi Chemical, marketing company located in Tokyo. It also resulted in a significant debt load. Mitsubishi also wanted access to our products. Mitsubishi Chemical is one of the several companies that are part of the Keiretsu, that is the Mitsubishi name. The Japanese at that time was trying to develop a strong business interest in the United States. It really did not work out for them. As a result of these events, I, as a corporate controller, had to make a number of trips to Tokyo in Great Britain. And my wife wanted to see Great Britain. Also, since my mother was born in Italy, I had an interest in visiting there, where she was born. These circumstances resulted in a number of overseas trips, some with my family, some alone, or with others. This is a review of the highlight of these trips. My first overseas trip was to Great Britain. As controller of my company, I was responsible for the property and casualty insurance coverage. Our broker was Marsh McLennan, who was headquartered in London, where I visited their offices. My hotel was close to Hyde Park in Harrods, the then famous department store. I walked Hyde Park and was fascinated by the practice that permitted anyone who wished to speak or lecture to do so in the park. There were 4 or 5 doing so when I was there, some with an audience and some without, but still speaking without an audience. My second overseas trip was to Tokyo. As an officer and controller of my company, I flew from New York to the Tokyo airport, took the bullet train into town, and a cab to my hotel. the Imperial Hotel, which is opposite the Imperial Palace. I had studied a tape of the Japanese language to help with communication. When I entered their hotel, I was greeted by someone from the division. So I said, "Oya gozaimasu," which is good morning in Japanese. He said, "No. Please use only English while you're here. We want our people to learn how to communicate in English." Another indication they wanted to strengthen their associations with the United States. This is a picture of the back of Tokyo Tower. If I remember right, I had to walk up the steps in the tower to get these pictures. With views of the city and the Tokyo Bay. Some of the experience I had that you might find interesting, we went to lunch the first day and they ordered fresh shrimp. When they were served, the heads of the shrimp were walking in the back of my tray. I asked my host, why were they there? He said, to show you that they used live shrimp to prepare your meal. After you finish eating the shrimp, they will take the heads back and deep fry them and bring them back to you so you can eat them. I said, no thanks. I was invited to a private club for drinks before dinner. When I entered, I was greeted by two beloved young ladies and escorted to her table. One sat on each side of me. I asked my host about this, and he said they were there to serve you drinks, sake, or other things you may want to eat. They were geishas, members of a professional class of women, trained to serve businessmen in more ways than one. The men then moved to a dinner table hosted by the general manager. I was asked what I would like to drink, and I asked for Canadian Club on the Rocks. The waiter was very apologetic, saying they did not have Canadian Club on the Rocks. And I said, any whiskey is fine. The next day when I returned to my hotel, there was a bottle of Canadian Club on my desk. On my second day there, I was taken on a tour of Tokyo, visiting some Buddhist shrines. But the most interesting event was the tea ceremony. The Japanese tea ceremony is a cultural tradition involving very particular places, procedures, and equipment for drinking green tea, with a special designed room, landscape gardens, and fine porcelain. All essential components of the ceremony. Drinking green tea is nothing less than art form. I was then asked to tour an operating plant in Yokkaichi. This required taking the train north that evening and having dinner with a number of the plant personnel. This is the area noted for Kobe beef. I ordered steak and it was very good. I could cut it with my fork. After I finished, the waitress asked if I would like some more. Before I could answer, my host said, please say yes, because they all wanted a second helping. My third overseas trip was to England, and with my wife. We stayed in an hotel just down the street from Harrods, so she got a chance to shop there, and we ate lunch at that restaurant. We also went to see the Phantom of the Opera before it came to the United States. We visited the palace. The Queen was not there, so we were permitted to walk through some of the rooms of the palace and the outside gardens. We could not take pictures. I rented a car, so we drove to the Cotswold, a very attractive area outside London, where almost all the homes had thatched roofs. We also went to the White Cliffs of Dover. And this is a picture of Sharon, if I get it there, standing on the meridian line at 1 degree, the 0 degree longitude. We also visited Stonehenge, a prehistoric monument. With an outer circle of vertical standing stones about 13 feet high and 7 feet wide. And the horizontal little stones, it's the top stones going across the town. It always puzzles me how in that time in history did they manage to construct a monument of that size with those huge stones. We then decided to tour some of the countryside. However, the roads were very narrow, and I hit a ledge, outcropping, and got a flat tire. Sharon enjoyed taking a picture of me changing the tire. You can see the cows in the background, with several cows watching me through the fence and giving me a few moves. We then drove down to Plymouth, southwest of London, on the coast of the Atlantic. The beaches there were very nice, but it was too cold to swim. We then, this is on 9/11, we then took the train back to London. We took a taxi at the train station, and the cab driver asked if we had heard about the happenings in New York. We said no. So he turned on his radio just after the second plane crashed into the Twin Towers. Our hotel was next door to the U.S. Embassy and across the street from Franklin D. Roosevelt Park. We had dinner in the hotel restaurant where a small group of musicians were entertaining. I asked if they would play New York, New York. So we asked the crowd if they were okay with that, and got a loud yes. The next morning, after breakfast, we went out to see a line of people over a block long. So a line of people over a block long, waiting to sign a condolence book at the entrance of the park. We got in line, and after you signed, you went past the FDR statue to exit the park. The flowers people brought.
There we go.
And the flowers people brought were at least 2 feet high around the statue, with many military and police caps included in the stack of flowers. The line continued to lengthen throughout the day. We were supposed to leave the next day, but all flights were canceled. I had to wait several times. I had to wait 45 minutes on the phone to finally get to talk to an airline agent. When I did, they said, "Stay where you are. The traffic coming into Heathrow Airport is several miles long, and people are running out of gas. Keep calling, and we will advise you when you can get a flight to New York." Finally, after over a 3-day wait, the agent said, because of a code we had on our tickets, I never knew what that code was, but whatever it was important, I guess. A code we had on our tickets, we will be permitted to board a flight. However, we had to know all flights were stopping in Newfoundland before they got clearance to land in New York. And the other thing that we were told was that when you landed in Newfoundland, if you had to stay overnight, the people there would permit you to come into their home and sleep there, which I thought was, we didn't have to do that. We got out fairly quickly. So, however, we had to know all flights were stopping in before they got clearance to land in New York. When we checked out of the hotel, I think our bill, our phone bill, was several $100s. The clerk asked if we were, and that was because of waiting on the phone to try to get clearance to get a flight. And I said yes. She said, "Wait a minute." She went back, talked to her supervisors, cut the phone bill in half, which is very nice of them. When we landed in New York on Kennedy, the airport was jammed with people. There were a few people holding up their cell phones. The modern ones were not in use yet, and offering the use of their phones to anyone that had to make a phone call. We had already called our sons from London and told them what our plans were, so we didn't need that. We considered our options to get home to Pittsburgh, rent a car, a bus, or taxi. We decided to wait for the next flight. We waited several hours before a flight was announced. We had waited in the air terminal so that when the flight was announced, we were one of the first in line to board because there were limited seats available on the flight. When we went back to pick up our car at the parking garage in Pittsburgh, the attendant asked if we were leaving, as we were leaving, if our delay was because of that to New York. I said yes, so we made a significant reduction in my parking fee. Our next trip was to Italy. After I retired, we took our family home. I took our family, sons and their wives, to visit my mother, where my mother was born in Montepulciano. Which is a walled city just north of Pesaro. We actually drove through that gate. We had two cars. One at a time, we went through, did a circular drive, and we parked in front of a church, and we went in. That's where our mother was baptized. And then on Pesaro is a beautiful city on the Adriatic Sea. Beautiful long beaches and dockage for pleasure and sailboats. The extended family now lives in Pesaro and welcomed us warmly. This was part of the group. They also had a dinner with over 25 members from both sides of the family. At dinner, one of the men was encouraging my daughter-in-law, Laura, my daughter-in-law, to drink wine. She said she can't because she was pregnant. He said, wine is good for a baby. We then were invited to the homes of a number of family members. Each had their own homemade wine. One also served rabbit, which really upset my wife. These are some pictures of my mother's home was built in 1901. My mother's parents came to the U.S. in the early 1900s. They settled in Stony Creek, Connecticut, very close to the shore. We could walk to the beach. They had two daughters, and my grandmother got pregnant again with my mom. She wanted the baby born in Italy, so she went back with her two daughters. However, my mother was born just when the First World War broke out. My grandmother and her three daughters were not permitted to leave Italy for 5 years. When my grandmother and her three daughters returned to the USA, to Ellis Island, my grandfather had the wrong arrival date. He went to meet them 2 days before their actual arrival date, so they went home. My grandmother and her three daughters had to find their way to Stony Creek, Connecticut. Fortunately for them, when they asked for directions, they were first directed to Stony Creek, Canada. When they told them at the train station that they wanted to go to Connecticut, they got on the right train. My grandfather had several grape arbors on his property and several on its casks in his basement. I used to help pick grapes when they were ripe, and put them in the casks so that he could make wine, which he then bottled in gallon jugs and sold to his neighbors. It was bootleg wine. The next leg of our trip took us to Milan in northern Italy. We rented 2 cars and drove to Pisa. See the Leaning Tower of Pisa. At that time, you were not permitted to enter the tower. Note the cables supporting the tower. We then drove to Florence and viewed the very impressive statue of David. We went to a nearby restaurant for lunch. There was a small line with a group of young Americans ahead of us. They were stopped at the door by the manager, who asked to see their credit cards or cash before they could enter. When we got to the door, I asked the manager what that was all about. He said, well, they had many young Americans enter, drink and eat, and they didn't have cash or usable credit cards to pay for their meals. It's kind of a shame. Huh? We then drove to Santa Margarita, which is on the Mediterranean. The next day, we went to the railroad station to get a round-trip ticket to Cinque Terre, the 5 villages on the west coast of the Mediterranean. Starting with Monterosso, then Vernaza, then Coniglia. This required a very steep climb, and our daughter-in-law was 7 months pregnant, so we did not climb. The next town was Manarola, that's a whole group of our family getting on train. That's the Manarola, which literally goes into the sea, and people have small boats in the streets, which they can then push into the water. The next town was Mazione, where we stopped for a gelato. We then took the train back to Santa Margherita. Our next destination was Venice. You had to park in a garage outside the city and take a gondola for a fee to your hotel. We did not do that, so we walked on very narrow sidewalks to our hotel, Columbia. Our accommodations were very nice, and the food was excellent. I was able to get eel, and I know that not many people like eel, but I do. And it was very good. We had a brief but busy time there. We saw the Pizza San Marco, the Piazza San Marco, the Dodgers Palace, the Grand Canal, the Rialto Bridge, and the outer islands of Torcella, where you could buy fine lace, in Murano, where you could buy fine blue glass bottles. We watched the craftsmen blow pretty glass objects. Sharon decided she wanted a beautiful picture in Danny's glass set you can see in our home now. We had to have it set aside, sent to us in Pittsburgh, because you could not safely carry it in your luggage. But there were some of the glass products that were in that. We then drove to the Lake District of Italy, past Lake Como, and across the Italian-Swiss border to Lake Lugano, the Chocolate City, where we had reservations at the Villa Principe. That's a nude lady at the end of the column there, if you're interested. It used to be a Princess Palace. The hotel had 3 restaurants. We had a private one where we celebrated our son Scott's 30th birthday. When we checked in, they asked for a birthday cake, asked for a birthday dinner. It was great. Those small wooden candles, they used as birthday candles. We then took a boat ride the next day on Lake Lugano on a boat similar to one of the boats my son Keith operates out of Marmaton. The next day we returned to Milan for our flight back to New York. We had been in the Netherlands visiting Amsterdam. Fortunately, it was the time when tulips were in full bloom. However, at the farm we visited, they told us all the tulips would be cut shortly, with most left on the ground, and the bulbs extracted and packaged for market. We had them sent to our some of them sent to our home address for planting in our gardens. We also flew to Athens, took a boat trip along the coast of Greece. One of our stops was Santorini, the white city on a high cliff, with a small boat in the shore and an escalator to the top. This is a picture of some of the city. We had lunch there on the balcony. You can see in the corner there. We had lunch there on the balcony overlooking the water. The boat we're on carried 120 people. We had a private cabin below deck, a private bathroom, and a portal that provided a good view of the Swiss City. Breakfast was served on the main deck, and lunch and dinner were buffets. There was free wine at dinner, 2 glass limit. The main deck had live music and a dance floor, which Karen and I used. The boat continued to Istanbul, Turkey. We had dinner there and flew home the next day. The U.S. relationship with Turkey was not very good at that time. However, the service was very good. The servers are courteous but not friendly. They never smile and talked only in taking food off their quarters. We flew home the next day. Now, if I haven't bored you enough, I will relate how I spent my time or my life after I retired. First, I volunteered for 8 years at a food pantry and men's shelter. There used to be a church on Pittsburgh's north side. A pretty tough area, but our pantry was one block north of a police station. However, that did not stop some people from trying to steal food. We served 900 families, or about 12 to 1,300 people. We had shelves stocked with canned and packaged fruits and vegetables, breads and some spices. People could put what they wanted, but had to have what they selected weighed. The weight allowance was based on family size. There were meats available that were served by a volunteer with specific limits. On Thanksgiving and Christmas, turkeys or hams were available, but only one to each customer. There was day-old pizza contributed by various stores and with a limit to one customer. That was the table I served the meats and the pizza. And I'll never forget, we had like maybe 3 pizza. And this lady came in and took one pizza and said, I want another one. I says, you only get one. Why is that? I said, because there are people behind you that want a pizza. I don't care about those pizzas. I said, well, I do. People want it. Once a month on Friday, our church, several churches took turns, provided the dinner for the homeless men. Sharon and other ladies from our church cooked the meal in the church kitchen. And then Sharon and I brought it to the shelter. We provided and served the meal like we would eat at home. Pork chops and rice, hamburger steak and potatoes, ham steak and vegetables, a salad and dessert, soft drinks and water. No alcohol, obviously. The men had to be sober and committed to be buried in the shelter. Sharon also helped form a Wheels on Wheel group that prepared and delivered meals to homebound seniors. I was president of North Pittsburgh's Library Foundation, president of our Homeowners Association, and on the board of directors of Goodwill Industries. I was also involved in Cub Scouts, Boy Scouts, and Indian bands. My son Scott is an Eagle Scout, as is his son. I also played senior league softball. I played third base because I was one of the few men my age that could make a strong throw from third to first. We won a senior championship one year. I formed a team of Aristic employees, including ladies. We didn't win much, but we had a lot of fun. One sport I enjoyed with my sons and some friends was shooting skeet or trap, clay pigeons, and pheasant. Our hunts were almost always successful, yielding around 20 birds. We hunted a 3,000-acre preserve, and the owner provided the guide and 2 bird dogs, and a pointer and retriever and thrush dog. He also dressed and packaged the birds, which he shared with family and friends. I think things worked out pretty well for us, including our move here to Time Point. Our son Keith scoped it out for us. He gave it high marks. Before we made the move, and our younger son Scott plans to move this area when he retires. I would be happy to answer any questions.
Any questions?
Yes,
Where was the preserve in Pittsburgh, 2,000 acres?
it was southwest Pittsburgh, just above the West Virginia border. 2,000 acres, it was Keith,
So-
huh?
It's a little town called Garrett's Ford.
Exports.
Garrett's Ford. Garrett's Ford. Right, it's right just on the West Virginia. And the preserve was called Hunting Hills.
Hunting Hill.
Hunting Hills.
Anything else?
Thank you for coming, and thank Bill for the Norway program. I hope to see you again next month when we have Bob Schreiber, who's going to be talking about his career, titled How I Got to Tie Point Selling Drugs. He was a pharmacist. Thank you for coming. I hope you have a good night. Thank you. Bye.